Welcome back from the break. Okay, you know, as I went around the state teaching this course we just finished up, one thing I keep hearing was bad comments about performance reviews. And I can ask this later in the course, and I'm going to do a rapid share on this, and we're going to hit just some major points on this and then we'll close up. We had a great training session. This finishes up 2 days here at Pelham PD, which had been a great experience for me. I don't know how your experience was with me, but I had a great experience meeting you guys, you men and women. So this performance review, how many in here have ever been officially trained on how to do performance reviews? Raise your hand. And that's almost, no hands went up, and that's almost every class everywhere. It's just something that we just don't train on, but we have to do them, and we're expected to know how to do them. So this is real deal performance reviews. So let me ask you this. How, in your view, y'all been very participatory in your comments back on these classes, but let me ask you this. How are they done wrong? How are performance reviews done wrong? What do you don't like? What is it you don't like? There's some things you like about performance reviews, I'm sure. But right now I want to ask you, what are some of the things done in performance reviews that you don't like?
Sometimes they may just only put the positive things and don't give you things that you need to work on, because everybody has things that they need to work on.
And that's perfect what you just said. What she said for the tape is that, for the filming, is that sometimes they only write the positive stuff. They won't write what you need to know to improve. Therefore, you cannot improve. That's bingo. That's got to do with real deal leaders, because they don't want to write and then face you face to face. I'm not saying that's a situation, but sometimes when that happens, they only want to write the rosy positive stuff, and they don't want to give you the areas you need to improve in, because they got to look you in the eye and do the leadership thing with you. Okay? And so they don't want to do it in person. They dang sure don't want to do it in a performance review. And so you just got through saying yourself, and you don't know where you need to improve because your supervisor won't be forthright with you. What's some other things as we pause for class participation? Only one person give input on that? Y'all all love your performance reviews. Have you ever had a performance review done? Well, there's some, and that's one of the biggies. We're going to discuss a few bullet points on how to complete better, more accurate, real deal performance reviews and increase morale and performance with them. So, what happens if we do all these things we just spent about 4 hours talking about? Let's say we do all those great things and we become a great leader, but we screw it up in the 11th hour when we set to do the performance review with our troop because we don't do them right. That's very possible. It's very possible. You can screw this leadership thing up when you sit down to do the performance review with them because you did it wrong. Okay? So that's what I want to talk about real quick. What happens when we take the top performers in your agency, and then you take your bottom dwellers in your agency and you group them up down the middle, into the middle, and you grade them right down the middle together, the same? Is that good for morale? Everybody shaking their head no. What does that do for the top performers? They're doing top performing work over here. And you did what with them? You lowered their grades. And you brought them down what? To average. What did you do with the bottom dwellers? You brought them up. And you did what? You gave them better grades than they deserved. I can't say that any better. So what does that do to the morale of the top performers? It kills it. That's right. What message does it send when you take bottom dwellers and don't grade them like they should receive, and you bring them up about mediocre and run them down the middle? What message are you sending to the rest of the department? You're what?
You're okay with their mediocre work.
You're okay with their mediocre work. In fact, not mediocre work, you're okay with their bottom work, but you're actually going to bring it and grade it as mediocre because you don't really have what it takes as a leader to sit down and look at you and say, you're doing bottom dweller work and you got to improve. So in fact, so what I can do, I can sidestep that and avoid that by simply grading, giving you higher grades than you deserve. That right there is some of the core issues with problems of performance reviews around this nation. This is what you hear when you talk to people. Do them well. Is it important? Yes, and that's what we're going to have a crash course on this real quick. I showed you on the screen here of all these areas that we do well, that we concentrate on. We do those areas well, but we can screw up everything, and we can screw all it up when we don't do our performance reviews right, when we give inaccurate performance reviews on our people. You dispatchers, you dispatch policemen to dangerous calls. You know what they have to deal with. Would you say these cops deserve to have good performance reviews? Yes, they do. You deserve good performance reviews. Our city, everywhere, they deserve good performance reviews. They deserve to be accurate. If you're a bottom dweller, you should get an accurate performance review. Our firefighters, they deserve it. All of our workers. Does the city of Pelham have top performers in their midst? Yes, all y'all shaking your heads. Yes, we do. Okay. Well, do you have middle of the road workers? Yes, you do. You're all shaking your head. Yes, you do. And do you have bottom dwellers in the city of Pelham? Yes, you do. Everybody's shaking your head. Toxic employees? Yes, you do. Everybody's shaking their head. You do. So in a nutshell, that's what those performance reviews should read. What you just said should be the way we see performance reviews. Your performance review for a top performer should reflect a top grade. If you got middle of the road employees, meet standards, it should show that. And if they are below standards, if they are knuckleheads, if they are toxic employees, if they are bottom dwellers, that's what it should show in their performance reviews. And that is in a nutshell what I want to talk to you about. So let me ask you this. So let's say we have a situation like this. I want to give you a situation like this. So you got the higher ups at the police department, and they've seen this employee do this yet one more time, and they're sick of it, and they're real irritated with it, and so they run over to HR, Human Resources, hereafter referred to as HR respectfully. I know she'll be watching this in the future. So you run over to HR. The higher ups at the PD, they run over to HR and they say, you know what, Mr. Rector, we are tired of this employee. He does this all the time. We're tired of it. I want to talk to you about it. I want him gone. I want him performance-based gone. So let me ask you this, in that scenario right there, and this does happen across this nation, what's HR going to do? What's the first thing HR is going to do? They're going to look in the personnel file. Thank you. And so the HR director just heard a bunch of bad stuff on what this employee's been doing, and the command and the higher ups at the police department, they're tired of it, and they're coming over there to see her about getting this person gone. And HR says, okay, let's look at the file. And they open the file, and lo and behold, what do they see? What do they see in this file? Do they see any of that stuff the higher ups just said? No, they don't. What do they see? What does the HR director see when they open up that file on this bad employee that they're talking about? They open up the file and they see what? They see that this person is walking on water. Walking on water. These are great comments, just the opposite of what you were saying. And the HR has questions to the police department. They say, what's some of the questions HR would have? Where's your documentation? Thank you. And so the police department's kind of surprised by that as well. They thought maybe there's some documentation there. So they start asking questions as well. And they may ask a lieutenant, I thought you dealt with that. Well, I talked to him. Did you write it down? Well, no. I didn't write it down. Is that a problem? If it isn't written down, does it exist? No, it does not. Not in this world. And so at the end of the day, when they open up and you evidently have an angel on earth, an angel in your workplace, instead of what you're telling me, it's none of that's documented. What's HR going to tell you respectfully? What are they going to tell you? Huh? He just pointed to the door. You got to go. You don't have what you need to do what you're wanting to do. I suggest you go do what? Huh? Start documenting. That's right, start documenting. It really is that simple. It really is that simple. Leadership is the best job in the whole world. You lead well, you love your people, you provide for them, but you do your best when you do their performance reviews. So let's say you have an officer, you get 1 year of, one reporting period, 1 year of good, hard, excellent police work. And they get the performance review with just a few comments here and there, some of it which isn't even accurate. What does that do for the morale of that troop? This troop really gave his all, his or her all. They really kicked butt and did a good job. And he sees his performance review, and it's just a few numbers and scarcely some comments. What does that do for his morale? Yeah, you're doing this sign here. It goes down. It's not good. How do you feel when it's done to you? I can tell you as a police chief, when the city administrator, when he gives me my yearly performance, if he writes 2 to 3 paragraphs, when I read those paragraphs, it means the world to me what he thinks of my job performance. There's a pay raise that comes with that, but our pay raises are connected to our performance reviews. If it's meet standards, it's a 3% pay raise. If it exceeds standards, it's a 4% pay raise. If it consistently exceeds standards, it's a 5% pay raise. That is a great problem to have. I'm appreciative that our city did that, does that. Did it when I was working, does it still. But I am appreciative when I read, it's important to me as a police chief what my city administrator thinks of me. It should be for you too, and it is. This is another area you may see where a supervisor will not let go of an area that he keeps dinging you that needs improvement, and you've already improved. And I had to step in and intervene on that one time with my deputy chief at the time and one of the lieutenants, because the deputy chief, he had written up the lieutenant in a performance review. He had documented that the lieutenant was not doing a very good, needed to do a better job of delegation of authority. And I read that first, okay, and the lieutenant agreed with it, first year. And so the second year, we kick along and I see the same comment, he needs to do better at delegating. And I thought he had been doing a better job at delegating, but he's my deputy chief. I didn't check on it any further. Let it ride through. Guess what, in the third year, when that lieutenant had been doing a fine job of delegating, and that deputy chief, who's a good guy, he just would not let go of that area, though there was improvement. Is that fair? No, it's not fair. And so when he dinged him yet a third time, guess what the lieutenant had enough of it. And I had to intervene on that and get that straight. And I had to tell my deputy chief, tell me some examples, show me some examples. Do you have it documented where he has not been delegating properly? No, I don't. It didn't happen. I've personally seen him delegating like he's supposed to. And so that was almost problematic, and I had to intervene and get that straightened out. And we got that performance review corrected. But if it'll happen with a deputy chief and a lieutenant, it'll dang sure happen with everyone else. Sometimes the supervisor will not let go of an area. They keep dinging you on it, and you've improved, but they won't let go of it. And that's an issue. It's an issue that needs to be corrected. Show me a leader and I will know his or her people. I told y'all this earlier. Show me his people and I will know the leader. And the other part of this is this. Show me the performance reviews he does on his or her people and I will know if he cares about them. You may need to take a look at that. Most of y'all probably do excellent performance reviews or have them done on you. but not everybody probably does. I've heard enough comments in the city of Pelham. I notice an area you need to work on. I've heard enough comments already in 4 classes. Any city really needs to take a look at that. That's any city USA. Performance reviews is something you need to take a look at. These are some of my sharpest people right here that I want to show you. Let me go back one. These are just some of my good folks. They're top performers. I know who my top performers are. I don't need to check the files. I can tell you who my top performers are. I had 100 employees almost. I can tell you who every one of my top performers are. I know that everyone knows who they are, just like everyone knows who your bottom dwellers are. Y'all were cutting up and making faces at each other a little bit when we're talking, as each class is done, when we talk about that, because everybody knows who the bottom dwellers are. Okay, you know, that's not something you got to go check the files on. Everybody knows it. Okay? That's some, if they got graded on dress appearance, that'd be downhill right there. That's some old school, that needs some upgrade dress code right there. The shoes are awesome, that's right, in white. That white's good to go. Some of your people, if you're gonna be a leader, be a good one. Be the real deal. And have you ever heard of this? It ain't over till the paperwork's done. And that's what I want to stress to you. All this time we've been spending today and the last 2 days on leadership, all that needs to be done. But you can throw the baby out with the bathwater. You can screw this up in the 11th hour when you do their performance reviews incorrectly or with not much effort. And if you don't put much effort into their performance reviews, can they tell? They did a great job all year and you put a few remarks down, just a few remarks down, some of them not even accurate, or just some general words, general adjectives. They know. Your people know if you took time or not with their performance review. It's critical for you to be bold enough to lead well, and to lead well includes being bold enough to sit down face to face with your direct report employee and give an accurate performance review. If they're a top performer, it needs to be accurate. If they are a middle of the road employee, it needs to be accurate. And one of the more important things is if they are a bottom dweller, that's what they need to hear, documented with facts, okay? It involves sometimes the good, the bad, and the ugly. It almost always involves the good, bad, and ugly. You have some, like you said a minute ago, they only tell me the good stuff. They won't tell me where I need to improve. How am I supposed to know if they won't ever tell me? That's true. So tell them where they need to improve. Go over it face to face with them. Once you start doing this accurately, like when you say the bold stuff you need to, it gets easier. Once you do it a couple of times, it gets easier. This is what that looks like with me. We had 3 levels of files. I don't know how you set up here. You may be all electronic, and we're electronic too at Foley, but we also had paper copies. So we had over at City Hall and HR, they had the official city file on their people, on all people in the city. But at the police department, my administrative assistant, she had a department level file, personnel file. But I would say the most important file was the worker's supervisor file. The supervisor's working file. And what that looks like is, let's say, Lieutenant, where did you just get transferred from? Patrol division to go back upstairs. Okay, perfect example. The captain. No, you're not going to be a good example because I need it to. You only have one captain, so let me pick you. Let's say that you are in patrol and your supervisor has a working file on you. He's been doing a good job of whether it's sticky pads thrown into a file that later is recorded decently, or emails he sends to himself about your performance. I do that. I email myself so I can put it in the file. Or it's a form that you use recording the good he does and areas he needs to improvement in. Letters of recommendation, letters of commendation. So all that's squared away in this file, a folder like that. And you transfer to CID. Where does that file go? Where should it go? Huh? CID. The CID's he's got a new daddy. He's got a new boss. And so the new boss should take his file, open it up, and if you've been listening to what we're saying, he should set him down, and the first entry should be expectations talk. We're going to have an expectations talk because you're not a patrol officer anymore. You are a detective. You're going to dress better than the chief does in that picture y'all saw. You're going to be a sharp, y'all got some sharp dressed detectives, I'm kidding. But you're going to have an expectations talk. But the main point is, that working file was going to follow you over to CID. And that's what it is. It's just, it can be just a folder marked with their name and working file on it. And that's what that's called summary for final performance appraisal. That's just a piece of paper, a form that we used to document the things that need to be documented, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And me personally, I kept those, the ones I was currently working on, I kept those in my top drawer. Why do you think I have them in my top drawer? Huh? No, well, true. They had to be real bold to go in my drawer and look at. Yeah, but that's not why. Say that again. I could easily find them. If they're down the hallway locked up under 3 cabinets, is that something I'm going to be all the time looking? No. It's a pain to go down there. No. I have these in my drawer. And so when I see something, hear something, observe something, I open my drawer, I take that employee out, and I document that. And then it reminds me, while I'm here, let me go ahead and just run through the rest of the employees that I am in charge of doing their performance reviews and go ahead and update on them. Sometimes there'll be no update. Other times, oh yeah, he did so-and-so, she did so-and-so. And I go ahead and update them. But I write that stuff down. If you do not confront, then you confirm. But if you do confront, you have got to write it down. I can't tell you how many times a sergeant or a lieutenant has been called in and said, hey, did you deal? I talked to him about it. Oh yeah, well, where is it written down? I didn't write it down. It didn't happen then. That's one of the biggest mistakes we make. It's one of the core things I want to talk to you about. Write it down. Most of your employees, if an employee gets in trouble where they get terminated, it's basically for 2 reasons. It's some kind of instant-based incident or termination. They did something real bad enough where they got fired. And that's usually not a difficult termination. It's the facts speak for themselves. They did something crazy, something stupid, and it was bad enough that you got fired. That's an instant-based termination. The other one is performance-based. Is that an easy termination? No, it's not. You better document, and your goal is not to terminate. Your goal, from our discussions prior to this, your goal is to redeem that employee. And so you document deficient performance areas, and you document your efforts to redeem this employee. But sooner or later, he or she will either redeem and get where they need to be or not. And when it's or not, you move to terminate because they're below standards and they keep staying below standards. But you better have your I's dotted and your T's crossed. It's not difficult. It just takes work. It's not an impossible thing. It just takes work. And you're doing the work anyway. Just document it and put it in a file. Progressive discipline, we've talked about that. Well, let me ask you this. What is the benefit of an evaluation? And you already said a little, you kind of hinted around the sides of it. What's the benefit of an evaluation? Huh? The benefit of an evaluation, you just said, is that so you could see where you can improve? Sure. What's other benefits of an evaluation? See what you do well. Is it, I just told you as a police chief, I'm a police chief. I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this since I had brown hair. Okay? I've had plenty of, why are you laughing? Somebody? I know it's white here, it ain't gray. I've been doing this a long time, and I still enjoyed reading what my city administrator thought of me and my job performance. It's important. It's a human nature thing. People want to see what you think of them in their performance reviews, and it's a good thing to see. When I write in my deputy chief's performance review that he is one of the best leaders, and he knows my reputation, he knows my background. He knows how long I've been a cop. When I've been doing this almost 40 years and he sees me write in his performance review that he's one of the best leaders I have ever been fortunate enough to work with in my life, in my career, do you think that means something to him? Yes, it does. I mean that. I wasn't making that up. I mean every word. He's one of the top leaders I've ever been fortunate enough to work with. And I put it in there just like that. That stuff is critically important to the employees. And at Foley, we do 3 performance reviews. There's 3 categories. There's a pre-appraisal, there's a mid-appraisal, and there's a final appraisal. The beauty of a pre-appraisal, it looks like this. You want to show the screen? It looks like this. It's a yellow pre-appraisal form, and it's filled out and it shows your responsibilities and results. What is expected of you and what you're going to be graded on. And this basically is letting you know, here is what we expect you to do and how we expect you to do it. It's not complex. You read it, you understand it, you sign that you understand it. Is that some pretty strong evidence that you understand what you're supposed to be doing? Yes, sir. You signed a dang pre-appraisal that you know what your job means, what you're supposed to do in your job. And then, our reporting periods are 1 year long, so about midway, about 6 months into it, you get a mid-appraisal. And that basically is telling you how you're doing thus far. At the mid-appraisal, there's a part in there, here's where you're doing well, and here's where you may need to improve in. Mr. FTO back here, DERs on a brand new troop, daily evaluation report. You may call it something else. But there's a graded section with numbers, and then there's a place on the back of the DER that says this is his strengths, and this is his weaknesses, or maybe not weaknesses, this is where this recruit officer needs to improve, and they see that every day, a daily DER, daily evaluation report. Those are critical. But this is where they get graded on their mid-appraisal, about halfway through, and then this is the final. This is the end of the year final evaluation. And so you'll get one of these grades. You'll get either meet standards, you'll get exceed standards, or you'll get consistently exceed standards. I know who those folks are. Actually, on my meet standards, they just meet standards. I know who those folks are. Okay, but to consistently exceed standards, this is real important that I want to cover with you. Let's say that you are a top performer, and you probably are, but let's say you're a top performer, and this lieutenant grades you. He's your supervisor, and you're given top work, but this lieutenant has a theory and a belief which I will tell you is wrong, which I've told each class, he doesn't really believe this, I'm just telling you as an example, but I'm telling each class, if you believe this, if you have been raised like this, you are wrong. And I'm asking you to please take a look at that and change how you do this, because it's wrong. So you're a top performer. Do you deserve a top performing grade?
I would think so.
Yes, sir, you do. But this man right here in this scenario is a supervisor who believes, see, if I give you a top grade, I'm really saying you're perfect. So I can't really give you that. I've seen that my whole career. Or they'll say, if I give you this top grade, then I'm saying there's no room for improvement. That's not good. So basically, what you're seeing is, number one, it's not fair, because he's given top work, but because of the way you were raised and taught, which is wrong, you won't give him a fair grade. It's not accurate. Also, these evaluation areas, they need to be reachable. They need to be attainable. If you've got a target performance area that in his mind you can never reach, you think you got problems with that legally? Yeah, you do. It's not attainable because he believes that if he gives you this, I'm saying you're perfect, and I'm saying that there's no room for improvement. And I would argue with you to please think about that, because you're not saying this person's perfect. You're saying this person gave top work and he's getting a top grade. And you're not saying that this person has no room for improvement. You will always have areas you need to improve in, but you deserve a top grade. Guess what? When you get this top grade, guess what you get to do for the next year? You have to what? You have to hold on to that top grade, huh?
You have to try to beat your last grade.
You have to, yeah, you have to beat it, or you have to try to hold on to it. I've seen people get a top grade, and then they kind of got a little mediocre on us, and they got graded mediocre, and they did not like it. Well, that's on you because you didn't maintain that. So that's one of the main points. That's some of the most important things I want to talk to you about is those areas right there. Please rethink that. Because your R&Rs or your responsibilities and results, the language that's put on how you to do your job with measurable results, they have to be SMART. S-M-A-R-T. They have to be specific. They have to be measurable. And what I just got through describing, attainable. So Lieutenant, the scenario I gave you, I'm telling you that the way that lieutenant in that scenario would grade him, he could never reach that. It's not attainable. And it's not fair, and it's probably going to you could have some legal problems with that because it's not attainable. Relevant and time-based, those are important. And we covered that. Perfect. And okay, so going in the other direction, you've got meet standards, exceed standards, consistently exceed standards. Go in the other direction. You've got a person who partially meets standards. That means that you're meeting some standards and some standards you're not. And that should be a red flag to you, because if you do not meet all standards, Houston, we got a problem, so to speak. And you need to have an action plan to how to get this employee up. So your goal, again, is to redeem and help your employees get to be their best. And even some of your mediocre or your exceed standards, help them where you can so they can get even higher performance. And a higher performance equals a higher grade. But you may not be able to, and they may not be able to reach that. Some people are not meant to be, some people just can't pull off the work that they've been hired for. Despite all your training and your best efforts, they're just not working out. And they partially meet standards. And eventually you have to terminate them. But you've got to document that stuff. This is what it looks like when you got development of self and others, like an R&R. This is what it looks like. Development of self and others demonstrates flexibility and actively seeking to learn new skills and jobs and willingly shares knowledge and skills with others. So your R&Rs, they're not complete until you have a measurable result included in that R&R. And I don't want to dive deep in that. I want to stick to the main points that we've covered here. I will cover this with you too, because I know none of you would do this, but I've seen it in my career. Don't you ever put false information about somebody in a performance review to meet some kind of agenda. I've seen that in my career. That's a pretty serious thing to do. You're writing in false information on a government record. This performance review is a pretty serious thing. And so I know none of you would ever do that, but I have seen it done in my career. So instead of documenting, instead of putting in writing on a dang performance review, this is the worst employee ever. Really? You put that in writing? No, you don't put that in writing. You may put something like, this employee is poor at typing, and then you work on getting them to type better, but you don't put crazy stuff like that in a performance review. You document throughout the entire reporting period, not just the last 2 months, not the last 2 months before it's due. So you don't touch, you don't do anything, and you get real busy documenting stuff only the last 2 months before the performance is due. That's not cool. It's not a continuous evaluation. It's not a continuous conversation. And so your supervisor should be having a continuous conversation with you throughout the year, throughout the reporting period, I mean. If you're not getting that, then what's something you can do? What can you ask your supervisor? If you're not getting that from him or her, what can you ask your supervisor? That's a question. What can you ask your supervisor? Okay, yeah. You can ask, how am I doing? How am I doing, boss? How am I doing so far? Where can I improve? That's bingo. And so you're kind of making your supervisor have a conversation with you. And so that's a record of discussions. And so there should be no surprises. You shouldn't read something and be surprised about it, because you should have already been talked to about it. And so we've already went over the pre-appraisal, the mid-appraisal, and the final appraisal. One of the most important things is the feedback. Giving and receiving feedback is critical. It's also an excellent time to see when you tell the employee they got a performance gap, this is what's expected, and you're coming in a little bit below that, and we got a performance gap, say at the mid-appraisal. That's an excellent time to see if that employee will look at you and say, what do I need to do to improve? If they don't, take notice of that. Write it down there. He didn't even bother to ask me how to improve. I would write that down, because you may need that later. If you cannot address these face-to-face and professionally with the right attitude, you might want to consider getting out of supervision, because this is just as important as leading well. This is part of leading well. It may be something else you didn't know about. That's the reason why they have a low performance. They may not have the knowledge, skill, or ability to do that job. They may have excessive workload. They may have inadequate clerical support, but you won't know until you do a face-to-face and start asking. It may be because other co-workers that they are depending on to do their job are snowed up on or something, or got something bottlenecked, and it's not their fault that they can't get this done. It's these other co-workers that have bottlenecked something that they need to do their job. Policy problems, lack of authority to get things done. These are all areas that you need to find out about that you may not know about because you don't do face-to-face throughout the reporting period. And so, the last thing I want to cover with you on this final is basically you're doing a recap on how the employee did during the whole reporting period, and we give them numerical rating. And again, ours is meet standards, which is 3%, exceed standards, which is 4%, and consistently exceed standards is 5%. There are some guidelines. There's 6 mistakes I want to read to you that you can avoid. These are 6 mistakes to avoid, okay? Number 1, don't wing it. If you're going to sit down with your employee, make it important enough for you to prepare for this reviewing session, okay? Don't wing it. Prepare for the review session. It's important to the employee. Number 2, not all employees know the process, okay? So explain it to each employee, especially brand new employees. Number 3, if you're doing it, during this session, if you're the one doing all the talking, that's not what you want to do. It should be a dialogue. And I'm going to pause that for a minute because I see some notes being taken on that. Let me know when you're ready. So if it's a sit-down session and you as supervisor are doing all the talking, it's not a dialogue. You ready? All right. Number 4, just because an employee is good in one aspect of the job does not mean he or she is good in all aspects of the job. And number 5, long-term employees are not necessarily automatically good at what they do. Just because if you're going to give them a high grade because they've been here for years and years and years, that's not always the case. Sometimes they get retired on active duty. Sometimes they've been here forever and they get lazy. That needs to be reflected in the performance review. I don't care how long they've been here. I worked, those around me gonna work up until the last day. I worked all the way up to my last day. Let me know when you're ready for one more. Number 6, very popular and likable employees do not mean they are automatically good at their job. And this is free from me. I've already kind of told you this in the other session. Leaders who run a popularity contest are not usually bold leaders. Okay? And a bold leader will set you down. So in conclusion, show me a leader and I will know his people. Show me his people and I will know the leader. Show me the performance reviews on his people and I can tell if he or she cares about them. okay? That's my contact information. If you ever need me, send me an email or text me or call me. And I want to tell you, it has been a true pleasure coming up here and spending 2 days with Pelham PD. It's been awesome. It was a great time to finish this session with just a small group because y'all were a trip. And I'm sorry you can't remember jack off of a movie. All right, thank y'all very much.